All right. So again, the name of the talk is I Can Do All Things Through God Who Strengthens Me. The book is Power Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. So we're going to be talking about who he is, what the book is about. We will be talking about the main points. We will have quotes versus scripture. I always like doing that. It's just so amazing to be able to compare the two. We have a talk called Pathological Positivity. This is by a psychiatrist, now alive psychiatrist, who talks about the fact that we do have an absolute choice about being happy, but we don't realize that. And so there are a lot of things in our lives that are obvious, but we don't see them. And so he talks about that, about the fact that there are these processes that go in our mind that once we know that they're there, we can attend to them and pay attention to them and understand that they can change the way we live, but they're right there in front of our noses all the time and we don't even notice them. So he talks about that a lot. So we're going to be talking about you don't have a choice about what happens around us or to us, but we always have a choice about what we focus on. So we'll be talking about this comparison model, that what it is. We have this saying that we use all the time, it is what it is. So he's going to be talking about it is what it is. It is whatever it is, but it is also relative to what could be the best case scenario and what could be the worst case scenario. So we're going to talk about reframing that, get clarity about what actually is happening. We're going to be talking about the fact that we always have a choice. Gratitude and patience are key. Controlling your mind, allowing yourself to ride the wave, and having faith. So who was Norman Vincent Peale? Norman Vincent Peale was born May 31st, 1898. So 125 years ago, clearly one of the pioneers of New Thought. And so I'm picking what I believe to be books that I think will be helpful for us, that will give us more background on how all of our New Thought beliefs came to be. So he's one of the pioneers for sure. He spent most of his life as a clergyman and motivational speaker. He served as a pastor of the Marble Collegiate Church in New York City for over 50 years. So The Power of Positive Thinking was published in 1952. He was a Methodist minister. He published also a religious magazine called Guideposts. That magazine is still available. You can go to their website right now. You can download all kinds of information. I strongly consider looking at it. It is very traditional, a little bit evangelical, but still very, very, very helpful. He voiced a weekly radio program called Live with Confidence. And so you can go online and hear some of those versions as well. There was a Hollywood movie made about him in 1964 called One Man's Way. So one reason why the book is so appealing is it is a combination of religion and science. He ran a clinic out of the basement of his church in 1937. So in 1937, he understood that psychoanalysis combined with religion will make you have a higher level of happiness. It was translated into 41 languages. It sold more than 20 million copies. It is now available as an audiobook as well. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for 186 weeks, and he is the author of 46 books. So Peale's influence extended beyond religion and self-help circles. He was a sought-after speaker in corporate America. A lot of corporations came to ask him to come and talk about motivationally inspiring people. He had a significant impact on American culture. He passed away on Christmas Eve, 1993, leaving a legacy as a key figure in the development of modern self-help movement and of the creation of the New Thought movement. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the introduction. The summary is the power of positive thinking will show you that the roots of success lie in the mind and teach you how to believe in yourself, break the habit of worrying, and take control of your life by taking control of your thoughts and changing your attitude. My favorite quote is, "The way to happiness, keep your heart free from hate, your mind from worry. Live simply, expect little, give much, scatter sunshine, forget the self, think of others. Try this for a week and you will be surprised." So Peale states that the book is written for the deep concern for the pain, difficulties, and concerns of humanity. It teaches us to think positively, not as a tool to gain fame, wealth, or power, but as a practical application of beliefs to overcome failure and to achieve creative values and worth in your life. For Peale, there was no better personal source of energy or guidance than the Bible. So remember, he was a minister. So there's quotes all over the Bible from him, ancient wisdom from scripture throughout the book, along with a lot of the works of Emerson, William James, and Marcus Aurelius. All of those are scattered through the book as well. He says life is always difficult, but appreciation of the universe's ability to bring good will lead to a happier, more content life. Life seems difficult, he says, because we only believe in ourselves and we are not reaching for spiritual help. The great secret for personal growth in order to have energy and peace must be to be willing to go beyond our personal limits and reach for bigger things. We must break the habit of negative thinking. People are naturally anxious and insecure. This can lead to health-related problems and personality changes. Anxiety, he says, is a habit which can be changed. It's an important technique that he talks about throughout the book called the mind drain. Get rid of all of your negative thoughts and anger. He said it's especially important to do this before you go to bed, to drain those negative thoughts, get them all out, and fill your mind with positive thoughts like courage, faith, and hope. Practice until you achieve a positive change. Your world is your thoughts about the experiences that you have, he says. So that mind drain thing has been called a whole lot of things. It's called mind dump. Recently, a lot of entrepreneurs and business people have done this thing talking about mind dump. So a mind dump, a mind drain, it's all the same thing. What you want to do is set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes, get out a piece of paper and just write. Do not have any plan. Just let it all come out. In his case, he's talking about letting all of the negative out. And it has been proven that once you get it all out of your brain, you free up space in your brain. So once you free up the space by getting out all of the negative, then you can start putting the positive in as well. You have to have a constant source of energy. He says you do this by having harmony with God. When we know what we are doing is supported by the universe and that we are moving towards a divine goal, we have a constant source of renewable energy. If we only do it alone and for ourselves, failure is understandable. The need to work together with others is what is most important. Allow yourself to rest. Most people are stressed, tired, and sleepless, depressed, and upset. Peale suggests getting out in nature as often as possible. There will be things that upset us, and problems are not as important as our attitude about them. He says, try to pray. This is a space to say whatever is on your mind in whatever language you want. Prayer helps you to get rid of negative energies and stimulate creative ideas. Instead of asking for something, be giving thanks in advance. We talk about that a lot, about giving thanks in advance. Instead of saying, please, 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 say, I acknowledge that you are giving this to me. I acknowledge that you have a plan and a purpose for my life. Let God do his part and envision a positive outcome. Peale's formula is pray, imagine, and actualize. Expect the best. Humans tend to expect the worst. Our subconscious mind controls our actions and only reflects our beliefs. Change your beliefs about the outcome and the actions will be shaped to achieve it, he says. Some physicians have begun using inspirational and religious books in combination with traditional medicine to help patients heal themselves with optimism and faith. Doubt closes the door of energy, but faith opens it, he says. New thoughts can refresh you. He says, make yourself a promise. Within the next 24 hours, you should only use the language of optimism, hope, and positive thinking. Then come back to quote unquote realistic thinking the next day. Repeat this for a week, and you will find what you considered reality a week ago seems to be looking very negative. Your perception of reality will rise to new heights, and you will become perceptually optimistic. The main message is no matter how complex your problem is, nothing is insurmountable if you have a positive mindset. By staying calm, cultivating faith, and focusing on positive outcomes, you can have a happy and healthy life. So I pulled out nine of the key points from the book. And so the number one is believe in yourself, visualizing possible positive outcomes, and then visualizing your problems by comparison, and they will seem small and they will seem solvable. Number two, give and take. He talks about how caring about others will make them care about you. Realize that the reason people don't like you lies within you. It's because your attitude. He talks a lot about being self-centered and about not caring about other people. He says people are not going to like you if all you ever do is talk about yourself and all you ever do is ask for stuff for yourself. If you start opening your mind and your heart to other people and making it clear that you actually want their best good, not always being self-centered. Number 3, not alone. Why you shouldn't face your problem on your own. Sometimes people have an attitude that no one can do a job as well as they can. They get overwhelmed and they don't share responsibilities. He says negative thoughts, hopelessness, and isolating yourself mostly lead to unhappiness and failure. Self-importance makes you feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. He says in order to combat stress, prayer and meditate and delegate tasks, and you will achieve better results and better health. Number 4 is attitude. Why your own thoughts are the key to overcoming your problems. Problems are real. The attitude is the ultimate importance. Debts take time to pay off. Diseases don't disappear magically. Change your attitude in an instant. Focus on positivity and search for inner peace. Your world is nothing more than the thoughts that you have about your life experiences. Think positively, set up positive forces, and that will bring positive results. Number 5, don't worry, be happy. So as you all know that have been with me for a while, I actually had a 10-week series on that, how to overcome destructive and unhealthy habit of worrying. Peale says that worry is a habit that can be broken. Believe that you can free yourself from worry. He says you do this by imagining a worry-free life. He says try to get quiet, close your eyes, and think, what would it feel like if I was just not worrying anymore? Just try to imagine what would your life be like if you just put all your worries aside and you just say, okay, I'm going to take the actions I need to take. I'm going to trust that God has a plan. I'm going to trust that God's going to help me achieve whatever it is. What would it look like to not worry anymore? Can you even imagine yourself not worrying anymore? He says it's real important to do that. So most important, you do this before sleep. He says fears, worries, and other negative thoughts can impede the flow of mental and spiritual power. After you're draining, fill your mind with thoughts of positive outcomes to your problems. He says, but you must practice this daily. Number 6, give yourself a break. Why you need to make the choice to be happy. He used the word today's feverishly accelerated pace. And again, he wrote that in 1952. You can think feverishly accelerated pace in 1952 leads to serious emotional illnesses, chronic fatigue, and frustration. Go out in nature as often as possible. He talks about nature an awful lot. Ultimately, the unhappiness we experience is not a given. It is a choice that can be made or reversed. Number 7, never lose heart. Why you should always try to see the positive even when you're facing problems. The quote is, when you focus on the worst possible outcomes, you stop the power flow, thus cutting off your ability to handle all of the obstacles. Your subconscious is telling you there are problems you cannot solve. He says, but you can train your mind to see things differently. Change the way you express the possible life outcomes, focusing on the positive and not on the negative. Often there is more than one solution possible, but you can't see it. You know, we have this expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. So you're so far in the problem, you can't see the other options. Number 8, the Bible. So he was a minister. Have faith can help you solve your problems. Your faith can only help you succeed if you first know what you want, where you want to go, and whether it is right to want it. In order to answer questions, turn to prayer. This helps release negative energy and lead to creative ideas. Think of the problems from the bird's eye view. Faith can only guide you to solutions if the success you're seeking is morally, spiritually, and ethically right. If the success you want is wrong in its essence, it is bound to be wrong in its result. Number 9, body and soul. Why faith should be a part of every form of therapy. The mind and the body are intricately related. Remember, this is 1937. He set up this clinic. Mind and body are intricately related. You need the combination of God and the doctors to lead us to true health. Peale ran a clinic in New York City. So underneath his marble collegiate church, he ran a clinic. He picked out a psychiatrist that was very well known. He had the psychiatrist come to the office, the basement, and they saw patients together. So Peale would do like a ministerial session with them, and then the psychiatrist would do a session. He said he found out that they would have like double the results if they combined the psychotherapy and the religion. I think that's incredible. 1937. Recognizing their own unique roles as well as the importance of the other, they were able to achieve the strongest results. The power of the subconscious mind, he said, let the picture of health sink in your subconscious, then powerful part of your mind will send forth radiant health energy. That sounds like Blaine to me. I hear Blaine's voice saying that. Peale. So what I wanted to move on to was I wanted to give some scriptural quotes and some Peale quotes. So here's some Peale quotes. Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss it, you'll land among the stars. That's very, very well-known quote of his. Believing you're safe. Have faith in your abilities. Without a humble but reasonable confidence in your own powers, you cannot be successful or happy. Change your thoughts and you change your world. What the mind can conceive and believe and the heart desire, you can achieve. Again, this is all the way, this is the roots of New Thought. This is the very, very foundation. I place this day, my life, my loved ones, my work in the Lord's hands. There is no harm in the Lord's hands, only good. Whatever happens, whatever results, if I am in the Lord's hands, it is the Lord's will and it is good. Scripture, Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make straight your paths. Matthew 17:20, for truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Mark 9:23, Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believes. And Luke 1:37, for nothing will be impossible with God. All right. So I found this guy. He's actually got a book and he does seminars all around the country. He's a live person now. And his name is Dr. Paul Jenkins. He's a psychiatrist, and he has a talk in a book called Pathological Positivity: How to Be Positive No Matter What. He's a clinical psychologist who specializes in the science and practice of positivity. He says one who is pathologically positive has a dogged determination to find or create the positive in every life circumstance, no matter how difficult it might be. He says, I am a clinical psychologist, and my job is to illuminate the obvious. There are a lot of obvious things that are completely unnoticed processes in your mind that are completely obvious once they are called to your attention. So a process, the first process he talks about is called metacognition. So cognition just means thinking. So metacognition is a higher level of thinking. So it means thinking about thinking. And he says, notice that you can do this. You can think about your thinking. You can notice what your thoughts are. You can control what your thoughts are. This is called metacognition. And it creates a space. And in that space is where you have the choice. That's where you have the choice exists, to be negative or to be positive. Happiness is a choice, but until you see it as a choice, it's not. So principles. Principles are the natural laws that determines life's outcomes, like gravity. Gravity, it's always on and it's always working. The principles determine all of life's outcomes. They're not negotiable. So he's going to talk about a couple of principles. The one in your mind. It is what it is. We have this saying all the time, it is what it is. It is what it is. The way things are, it's who you're with, it's what you have, it's the way things are right now without changing anything. That's what it is means. While he was sitting at a conference, he got this little message. So he's not allowed to have, you're not allowed to have a phone when you're in conferences, but he got, on your Fitbit, you can get those little tiny little truncated message. So he got a little truncated message that from his sister, that his nephew had been in an accident and he had fallen and slipped. He fell off a 30-foot ... It didn't have the rest of the message there. And he wasn't going to leave. He was sitting in the front row at this conference, so he didn't want to get up and leave, but obviously he was very, very upset. He said, my thoughts went immediately to the family. He put up a picture of the family, young kids, mom and dad, wondering what's going on. He said his own father had lost his dad to an accident when he was only 5. He had a good friend of his that was crashed his plane in Utah Lake 10 years ago. He left a wife and a family without a husband and father, and his mind went there. So he went, he waited until there was a break. And when he went to the break, he went and called, obviously. And it turns out it was a 30-foot waterfall that he fell from, and that he broke both his ankle and seriously injured his knee. He said he felt relieved and even happy. He called Katrina and she said, "We're so grateful and happy about this outcome." It is what it is. In this case, 2 compound fractures in both ankles. But what your mind does is evaluation. You can't turn this off. That's one of the processes, he says, just like gravity. Your mind is instantly going to go to, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And you're going to go into judgment mode. You are constantly doing this. Just notice it. You can't turn it off. You can't make it go away. So evaluation means comparison with some standard. And if you don't have a standard in your mind, you're going to create one. And he says we all have the ability to have these huge, big imaginations when it comes to these things. And we usually go to the dark side. Can you imagine what is better than 2 broken ankles? Well, the first thing would be no accident, that everything goes exactly well and nothing happens and anything's out of the ordinary and everything is exactly as it's planned. And when you look at the 2 broken ankles and compare it to that, how do you feel? You feel this is bad. He should have had a fabulous time with his family. And now he's got these, fractured ankles and his knee is broken. You feel like it's really bad. But when you take the 2 broken ankles and compare it to something better than something worse than it is, how do you feel? He says, never worry about how you feel. He's a clinical psychologist. He says, you are never wrong about how you feel. It is 100% consistent with how your mind is doing this process, this comparing process. Can you imagine anything worse than 2 broken ankles? Much worse, death, a young father. Now, how do you feel about the 2 broken ankles? Just notice how your mind works. There are 2 sides to every question. What it is all you've got. It's always between better and worse. What we do in our thought matters. The next process he talks about is called creativity. He says this is another process you can't turn on and off. It's just like gravity. It's just like evaluation. You're going to do this by nature. We are all creators. He said, if I asked you all to go out of the room and just spend 15 minutes coming up with a plan to make your life worse, could you do that? And he says, we all do it all the time. Notice how quickly your brain can come up with half a dozen ways to pull that off. We have to imagine what we're going to create. Nothing exists until it is first created. So I don't know if you remember, those of you who were with me last week, I looked out into you guys, and there was a lot of you here, and it was really, really crowded. And I remembered I had put I have a picture up in my home of a chapel that's filled with people, like you literally don't have one chair left. It's totally filled. And I really believe, obviously I believe in everything I say, but I really believe I had this picture in my mind of filling up a chapel, and I wanted to create a community where people love and respect and admire each other and treat each other really, really well. And so I have this picture of this chapel filled with people, and my goal is, and if this one gets too small, we're going to, by God, get another one. But you know what I'm saying? He's saying nothing exists until you create it in your mind. And I'm absolutely believing that that's what's true. So you don't know what's coming. You have to imagine that first. When you imagine that what's coming is worse than what you've already got, how do you feel? That's anxiety. You don't know what's coming. How do you feel when you imagine what's coming is better? That's the positivity vector. It could always be better, and it could always be worse. Happiness is, in fact, a choice. You choose the way to look. You choose when you make the comparison. Pathological positivity. Our planet is plagued by a pandemic of poisonous pessimism. Predominant population places pessimism on a pedestal. Pathological positivity programs and positions people to perceive positive possibilities in painful problems. It inspires and provokes people to apply positive principles and practices, even in paralyzing predicaments. This promotes powerful personal and professional posterity, and the payoff is powerful and profound. His spiel was actually a lot longer than that, but I just pulled that one out because I just thought it was so incredibly well done. So you can look him up, Dr. Paul Jenkins. I think he's amazing, and he's got a book as well. So here's what I know. I love this book, his book, but also this book, The Power of Positive Thinking. This way of thinking, I love remembering that I always have a choice, not of the thoughts. So people say, well, I can't choose what I thought. You can't choose what you thought. The thoughts are going to come and go, but you can choose what you focus on. And I really love the work of Dr. Paul Jenkins, who reminds us it is what it is, not in any way advocating that we ever put our heads in the sand and be an ostrich. What's real is real, and bad things happen to all of us. Every single person you deal with is going through something right now, whether you know it or not. But Dr. Jenkins teaches us our minds will play tricks and go to the worst case scenario. If we put events on a continuum, what could be better or what could be worse, we realize that there are other ways of looking at what is. He reminds us happiness and acceptance of what is freedom for us. We can choose it, but we forget we have the choice and we go into fear and anxiety. Remember also what you focus on gets bigger. If you focus on the negative, fear and anxiety, you will get more of that. So you all heard me talk last week about my COPD. And I had a pretty bad flare starting like the week before Thanksgiving. And so last week I was using a pump every 4 hours, a rescue pump. It got worse. It actually got worse to the point where I was really, really having a hard time breathing. And I talked to my doctor and she said, this is not a flare. You've moved into the next stage of COPD. And so she's put me on a permanent inhaler now because my lungs can't function without it. She put me on 5 days of prednisone because I was so inflamed. She put me on 5 days of antibiotics because I had an infection in my lungs at that point. And we had a talk. And she said, Lucretia, you've moved into a new level. And this is not just, you're not just going to be using a rescue inhaler when you cough. Your lungs are permanently damaged. And so you have to start this new thing. And so obviously it was a roller coaster. It was a real roller coaster. I had to ride the roller coaster. I was sad. I was depressed. For the first time, actually, I was scared. Like, what is this going to look like? Because she said, Lucretia, it's going to get worse. So you need to just prepare yourself. It's going to get worse. And I went through the roller coaster. And so one of my big messages to you guys is allow yourself to have the feelings. Allow yourself to ride the wave. But then the meds kicked in and I started to feel better. And I realized that I've had crap in my lungs for a really long time. I felt like this, the only way I can describe it is it feels like there's tissue paper in there. And every time you breathe, you can feel all this fluttering of the tissue paper. And I've been feeling like I've been pushing a snowball up a hill. And you've seen me be sick quite a bit the last couple of months. And so then it dawned on me that this flare was actually a really good thing because it got me on this medication and I'm not going to have to go through this anymore. I do have to take, so the new medication does have a steroid in it and I will be taking it twice a day. I take it in the morning and at night. She says she wants me to still carry my rescue inhaler with me. So if I start coughing, I take that right away. But I realized that this is God's way of saying, hello, wake up, get your head out of the sand. You got COPD, it's real. But you know what? I used all of the Paul Jenkins stuff. I was like, but it's okay. I'm not happy about it. And I'm not putting my head in the sand and pretending it sucks. But the reality is I've got a really good doctor and I've got really good medication and I'm over 65. So most of it is paid for. The large majority of my medication is paid for. And so it's also asked me to reevaluate my priorities and to do things a little bit differently. I started being grateful for the meds. I started being grateful for my doctor. I started being incredibly grateful for this wonderful job. Somebody asked me about my job. Gail asked me about my job. My job is just a piece of freaking cake. I mean, I love my boss. It's just the easiest thing in the world. I literally get my butt down and just answer phone calls and talk to people and try to cheer them up and deliver pet food to dogs and cats that are hungry. I mean, really, it couldn't be a more wonderful job. And I'm so grateful for my beautiful, beautiful little home. Do what works for you. You know yourself. So I'm a really big Christmas person. I really, really like Christmas, but I have a really big tree that is, you have to put together and it's in the shed and I have to go into the shed and dig it out. And I've got crates full of ornaments and lights and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't do that. But the other partners were like, I really need the lights. So I went to the Goodwill and I bought a tree, like this big that I put on top of a big cabinet, and I bought 250 lights, and I wrapped the shit out of the lights, and I put the lights on so that I plug it in and the lights are sparkling. You got to do what you got to do for you. Like, I know now I probably am not going to have strength to go into that shed, maybe. And my best friend said to me, Lucretia, 2 weeks from now, you may be feeling so much better. You may want to go into the shed and pull out your 6-foot tree and put it all up and drag out your 10,000 ornaments. And if I do, I do. But at the moment, I know myself, and I know I needed those lights. I knew I needed the sparkling. I knew I needed the tree. So do what you need to do for you. And so I did that. So stay flexible, pay attention to your body. Music. So music, most of you know I was a professional musician for a long time. Music is a huge part of my life. I started playing Christmas carols before Thanksgiving, I'm going to be honest, but I cranked them up. I cranked up a whole lot, and I made a whole new playlist for myself called Anti-COPD. And it's got songs called There's a Winner in You by Patti LaBelle, Danny Gokey, New Day, Lauren Daigle, Trust in You, Wilson Phillips, Hold On, Rachel Platten, Fight Song, and Brave by Sarah Bareilles. So now I've got my anti-COPD playlist, and I just play all my songs, and you get to make a choice. You get to make a choice. A choice to listen to those or choose to be grumpy. So sometimes the shift is gradual, one day at a time. Let the meds kick in. Start planning more rest and sleep time. Write it out. I'm a really big believer in writing. Write it, write it, write it, write it, write it. Call a friend. You all know I have my very best friend. It's really important not pretend that you're doing great when you're not. Allow yourself to go through the stages of acceptance. And when life hands you a challenge you didn't see coming, let yourself go. Let yourself ride the wave. It's going to hurt. It's going to be sad. You're going to be upset. You're going to be depressed. Let it go. Move on. Get back into the positive. The choice, the final choice, is to say, I can stay in this scared, miserable, anxious place, or I can say, I'm going to do the best I can with everything I've got. And always, 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 always gratitude. Always gratitude. Thank you for the meds. Thank you for my doctor. Thank you that I caught it in time. Thank you, I've got this beautiful home. Thank you, I've got my little kid. Always, always, always go back to gratitude. But always believe with your whole heart God is in charge. God loves you and wants your best and highest good. God will bring people, doctors, meds, life situations to you to help you grow and expand into your best and highest self. God will also comfort you. Sink yourself into the loving arms of God. Most important, understand it's your choice. There's a time for crying and hurting and being disappointed, and there's a time to release all that and get back to focusing on the positive and healing and acceptance and gratitude. God will give you little nudges on how to take care of yourself, what to do, like my little Christmas tree, getting out a warm and fuzzy blanket, buying more eggnog. You do you, but you do it with God's help and the help of loved ones, never alone. Trust, relax, believe, have faith. I can do all things through God who strengthens me. And so it is. Remember, at all times, the power is in you. It always has been, and it always will be. Thank you.